Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 130. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented, everyone who has subscribed to the show. All your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. Also want to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment provides first-class weight rooms and has earned an exceptional reputation of providing the finest quality, design, and customer service. Being a direct manufacturer, the team at Samson brings full customization capabilities and not only branding, but in custom equipment needed to execute your next project. From racks, plates, barbells, benches, dumbbells, storage, flooring, and much more, Samson equipment is durable and made to order from premium grade materials, all built from scratch, start to finish. Samson equipment provides professional weight room solutions for all your strength and conditioning needs. See the Samson standard for yourself and learn more at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Cerberus is an organization that truly puts the athlete first and actively works towards providing the best quality gear at an affordable price. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus has quickly evolved into a global brand symbolizing quality and trust. Their ever-growing product range is used by the top athletes around the world at the highest level of competition, and every single Cerberus Strength product has been designed with performance in mind with the highest attention to detail. So if you're in the market for the highest quality strength and conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_game to receive an extra 10% off your next order. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. The kilt is tradition dating back centuries. Worn by nobles, military, and fashionistas, the kilt has been through it all, at times banned and other times celebrated. For over 25 years, Sport Kilt has been striving to perfect their version of the Scottish classic to create the ultimate garment of fashion and function. Sport Kilt offers a wide range of universal and clan tartans, as well as custom sport kilts, an excellent selection of accessories and apparel to complement the kilt wearer. Check out the full line of kilts and join the kilt life at sportkilt.com, and be sure to use promo code TSG to save on your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Conor Hughes. Conor is the head football strength and conditioning coach at Army West Point. Hughes is in his 8th overall season and 6th as the head strength and conditioning coach for the Black Knights, being named to his current role in 2019 after serving 2 years as an assistant coach. He was the head strength and conditioning coach at the University of Albany for 6 years, where he directed training for the football and men's basketball teams prior to joining the Black Knights. Prior to Albany, Hughes was the head strength coach at Iona College in 2010, working with all 21 Division I sports. He began his coaching career as an intern on the football strength staff at Georgia Southern University in 2008. From there, Hughes was a graduate assistant strength coach at the University at Albany from 2008 to 2009, before being promoted to full-time assistant and joining Iona. Hughes is a former college football player and was a 4-year member of the Springfield college football team. He is active himself, continues to train with the strength staff while balancing the rigors of the college football season. He's an avid lifter, enjoys being a dad, shooting guns when he's not in the training room and not in the weight room. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Conor Hughes. What's going on, everybody? I'm very excited today. We've got he won't admit it, but we got a legend on the show. We've got Coach Conor Hughes. I appreciate your time, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
No, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. That's That's an interesting adjective. Never been called a legend before. I guess I'm getting old there.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that share that sentiment with me, but I've been watching you from afar, and before we kind of got recording, there's a lot of connections that we've had. Obviously, like some of the Springfield connections, even with my current boss, and some of like my peers across the table from Coach Hess back in the day. Some of the other guests that we've had on the show, a lot of people speak very highly of you. People see you from afar, come and visit, and it's great to share some time with you and actually get you on the show and talk.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, I'm excited. So,
Hey, well, let's hop right into it, kind of before we get to kind of your coaching tree and like how you actually got involved in actually like the X's and O's of sport coaching. How did you kind of get involved in the strength game, lifting yourself? We played football 4 years at Springfield College, but like what really got you excited about like physical culture and training?
so interestingly enough, I my uncle was a high school head strength and conditioning coach at Boston College High School, right there in Boston, Mass, where I grew up. And going into and I didn't really know what any of that was. I was playing football, I was wrestling, I was playing baseball, doing all that stuff, and he ended up running a high school strength and conditioning clinic in the summer, and I didn't go to this high school. So I was going into my freshman year of high school, and my dad brought me to the camp, and I did the camp, and I when I tell you I was beat up and sore the first week and just smoked, but like I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. I ended up coming back every year. I would train with him during the season of high school football and wrestling. I wouldn't be able to go to their high school, but all spring I would go to their high school and train with him. All summer I would go to his strength and conditioning camp, and then I ended up my first internships and my first jobs were at that high school, and it really got me started, and I owe a lot of the success that I have to him. And Brian Hess, who we talked about earlier, who was the head at North Carolina, he was his first internship was there too. So it's interesting. He's got two guys that ended up being Division I strength coaches right there, training kids there when they were 22 years old, 20 years old.
Yeah, de definitely an interesting connection between you two before you even guys got connected, kind of
Yeah.
at West Point as well too. But that's awesome to kind of hear about that training and everything. Like, what kind of got you involved more so like on the coaching side after that? Like, you had a lot of stints. Like, what made you kind of solidify that? Hey, like football career is over. Like I really want to get involved in coaching. And then you've been with football programs, you're the entire inception of like your coaching career. Like what solidified? Was there a moment? Was there a person that kind of said, "Hey, this is the career path I want to go down"?
Well, it twofold. So it's interesting. When I was graduating from Springfield, I honestly didn't think I was going to end up in strength and conditioning. I remember it was my senior day, and they said, "What do you want to do for a job?" And I didn't have anything. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't think I wanted to be a strength coach, to be honest with you. And then I ended up doing my first internship at Georgia Southern, and because you need to do an internship to graduate, and that was that summer after my senior year. And I got down there, and I remember it was hot as hell, and it was brutal. And I'm from the Northeast, and it was a totally different culture. And the first training session kicked off, and I got probably 2 minutes into it, and I was like, "This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life." I fell in love with just bringing the energy and getting excited and coaching guys and trying to get it better. Like it was instant. As soon as I started coaching at the collegiate level, I was like, "This is what I'm going to do, and this is what I want to do the rest of my life." I kind of at one point I didn't know, and this was early on in my college career, and I didn't know if I wanted to be a coach or a strength coach, and going back in football versus strength conditioning, and this was before I kind of said I didn't want to do it, and then came back to wanting to do it. But I remember I was talking to one of my coaches, and I was like, "Hey, I don't know if I want to be a football coach or a strength coach." And they said, "Hey, you don't know any of your plays. You don't like watching film. That's what football coaching is. But you love practice. You love bringing energy. You love so like a strength coach is way more applicable to my skill set." So like I said, that first internship at Georgia Southern, that first day, I was all in. It's all I want to do since then, and it's been my passion for now 15, 16 years.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's like right in
Yeah.
the beginning, like to understand that that's what you want to do for a career and that's like what you want to stick with. That's awesome. I think a lot of coaches kind of have that kind of light bulb, like quick moment where that's what solidifies it. It's
Yeah,
I know we got going before, kind of talking before we actually hit record. There's like the landscape of college athletics is changing all the time. And like you see a lot of coaches like leave either like to get out of college and do something else, like private sector, high school. I mean, all those jobs are growing more and more. So it's a little bit different than people just staying their whole career in college. But you
yeah.
talk about like how passionate you were from that day one. And I know like from talking to other coaches you worked with and even just talking to you now, like that same kind of drive and passion is still there. Like, what do you think it is that like keeps you that motivated like day in and day out to come in and do that job? And what do you think is like the reason why a lot of besides like I know financial and things like that kind of drag on coaches, but like what kind of makes people almost get to the point where they're not passionate about coaching in a way?
Ooh, that's tough. I can say for me, personally, that the rush I get when I run in, because say we're starting to work out with our team at 4:30 today. We start at 4:30. I'm sitting in the offices waiting to run in right at 4:29 and 55 seconds. And the rush I get starting that program, the rush I get like getting guys fired up when they're squatting to see guys achieve things that they didn't think was possible, or see them grind through a rep, or finally snap a clean and get the technique perfect. Like that, there's no greater mark other than me marrying my wife and hanging out with my daughter and my daughter being born. There's no greater professional rush I could get than that. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal. To me, it beats game day. And that sounds funny to say that, but it's the most exciting thing in the world to me to go in there and the music's cranked up and my guys are just the players are just getting after it and their technique and you see these guys progress from when they come in as freshmen and they're kind of gangly and they're developed 4 years later or 2 years later they're developed and they're strong and they're tough physical young men. It's truly it's the greatest thing in the world for me. um as far as why people don't or people and interestingly enough, one of my former assistants just became a head strength coach. He did his first workout yesterday with his team, and he texted me after. He said, I can never be an assistant again." He goes, "I don't know." Like he goes, "It doesn't matter what level, whatever." He goes, "It is a completely different scenario now where I'm running the show." He's like, "It's like a drug. I'm addicted to it after day one." And I was like, "Amen." Like there's no better feeling, no greater feeling than that. Why people get frustrated? You touched on it. It's a highly competitive, highly competitive field. Um, there isn't a lot of work-life balance, and if you're not, and I tell young people all the time, if you can possibly see yourself doing any other job, go do that job, because you have to absolutely be in love with this field to make it. And the thing is there is a lot of people in this field. I don't know if there's a lot of like elite coaches. I think the elite coaches end up if they keep pushing and keep pushing, keep working, that eventually they'll end up making it. And I talked about work life balance and the anything you're going to do that's going to be super competitive, that's going to end up and competitive athletics is one of those things. But college coaching, college transition coaching is super competitive. There is a reward if you end up making it. But the there isn't going to be a lot of work life balance and young people. I give this example all the time is like uh would you rather be like at home playing video games right now or in here coaching? Like you think about work life balance for a young person without any kids, like it's going out and drinking beers on a Friday and Saturday night, which you need to do every once in a while, but like if that's what you're missing, it's if it's video games at home is what you're missing, like maybe you should be grinding a little bit more at work. For me, my work life balance at this point is there's two things: is my wife is at home raising our daughter. The person I trust the most in the world is at home raising that little girl, and the fact that I have this outstanding job and am able to provide that for my family means a lot to me. Um, but then also because of the schedule here and because we live on post and live on post, which is for non-military and is campus, is my wife and my daughter come up here every day. My wife either works out or goes for a run every day, and I spend 2 hours with my daughter here every day. Now I'm here from 5:30 in the morning until sometimes 7, 8 o'clock at night. So I don't get that 5:30 to 7:30 before she goes to bed every night. But I get that 2 hour block with that little girl every day, which is for me phenomenal.
No, that's awesome. That's a great like thing that you can afford and to
Yeah.
have the family be able to come on campus,
Yeah.
obviously, and understand that like those are the kind of the commitments of like a football program and a head football strength coach. Like to have that and then have an environment that's welcoming enough to include your family. And I know like Coach
Absolutely.
Monken and everybody on the staff too, like they kind of preach that too. And it comes down from the top. Like that's awesome to be able to have that because I think that's another reason why coaches end up getting burned out. Like we know that there's not really a balance to it. It's almost like a juggling act where you're just spinning plates and there's really high points in the season where you're gonna pull whatever hours it is, and there's gonna be some lower points where like you're kind of afforded those times to like sneak away or shorter days, but you try to figure out where you can kind of take your coaching hat off for even just a couple hours and
Yeah.
make sure that you can have that quality time. So that's
It's,
awesome.
it's one
Uh,
thing you said that I just, and I don't want to, Bob Ford, who was the only before Coach Gattuso, this is the University of Albany. So I worked for Bob Ford and then Greg Gattuso, who were Bob Ford was the only head football coach they had ever had at the University of Albany. They started as a club level and then moved all the way up to uh, the top FCS uh, conference in the country, the CAA. So for 43 years, he was the head coach there. And something he used to say all the time is in coaching, there's a lot of tens and a lot of zeros. He said, if you work in insurance, there's some days that are fours, fives, and sixes. But in coaching, your day is either a 10 or it's a zero. Like you leave, I've left my office thinking I'm the worst strength coach on the planet multiple times in my career. And I've walked out of here thinking that I was the hot shit best strength coach on the planet multiple times. Now the truth is probably way more in the middle there, but like there's your day's either a 10 or a zero. You're not you're extremely excited about the day or you're pissed off for a few days. It's just that's the way it goes in coaching. So just an interesting thing that just pops in my head.
yeah, that's an interesting concept too, because I think coaches were super hypercritical of a lot of
Yep.
those things, and we're looking for like meticulous detail with either the setup or execution of lifts or kind of controlling as many things as we can to give the athletes like the best opportunity for success. And like for us, that's in the weight room, and that especially for you guys, like at a military academy, like you only have a certain amount of time. So like you have to be spot on with everything. And you are very hypercritical of that stuff. But it's funny too, because on the flip side of that, with coaches, you're trying to also like not let athletes ride those highs too high or get the lows too low. So you still kind of you're hypercritical of yourself, but you're trying to preach to the athletes to like ride the waves right in the middle. It's an interesting concept to kind of balance out.
Absolutely. If you're involved in college athletics, you're hyper competitive no matter what the situation is. You're trying to win. If me and my wife are playing Scrabble, like we are knock down, drag out, fighting. Like that's just it's who you are as people. And just the trying to control that back end is I've gotten better at it with age. And I think most people do get better at it with age, but it's tough.
Yeah, definitely. It's the competitive nature. It bleeds
Mhm.
into everything, but it's got to happen. Hey,
No
so
doubt.
you talked about it too. Some of like your former assistants taking on head roles and everything like that. It's the environment. I think it's what you allow your assistant coaches to do. I know your hiring process and everything too to bring on the best people that fit to make the best five for the team that you have. The concept I've always heard people say like is like to get to a head coach position, like you don't understand the job until you get in that role. Like on the Olympic side, you kind of are a head coach for your sport. It just depends on the level at which like the head sport coach gives you autonomy to do what you want to do. But for football, everybody knows how important the strength side is. A lot of times between offense and defense coordinators, that is the next role. Like those are the top three positions that get filled right away as soon as a head football coach is hired. So there is a lot of differences between a head and an assistant on a football strength staff, but do you feel like it's crucial for all your staff members like to experience that head role for a first time as a football strength coach? Do you think it's necessary? And then also like how in ways do you kind of prepare them, or is it just it's just by the nature of what you guys do every day that all your staff is prepared to take a head job at some point in time?
Uh, I'll touch on the idea of the never being ready, and you will never be ready. You'll never be ready for any job when you get promoted. And my wife was a strength coach, and then she ended up working in the private sector for a little bit before we had our daughter Ruby. But the she kept getting promoted with this one company, and every time like it'd be the first 3 months she'd get promoted, she would be so stressed out and be like, I can't do this. And I'm like, it's just new job stress. It's new job stress. You have new things that you have to just organize and get your setup and your structure right and your day set up, and then you'll have it handled within 2 to 3 months. Um, it that's going to happen with whatever your role is. When you get promoted within a staff, when you go to a new school, if you take over a head role, it's going to be. I remember the when Brian left here. I mean, we're going back 7 years now. When Brian left here and I became the head strength coach here, I'd already been the head strength coach at two schools, and I was in here, and this was back before we had kids, before it was much calmer time in our lives, and I was in here 7 days a week, just making sure I had everything organized. I mean, I was in here every single day. Sundays, I remember being here, like just to make sure that everything was set up so that this would be successful. But as far as like the staff and the hiring process, I think you alluded to that. But when people are here and as they grow here and they get better, and I can trust them with little things, I'm going to trust them with bigger things. And the better they do, the more opportunity they're going to get, and the more opportunity they're going to get. And if they keep proving themselves right, I'm going to keep giving. At this point, my staff is there's really five head strength addition coach on the staff. When they're in charge of the FRC, or they're in charge of the GPS, or they're in charge of teaching the Olympic lifting, or the skill and combo group and the tight ends group, they're the head strength coach. You alluded to the time aspect here, and we are limited by time. That's our one thing that we got to kind of work around, is just the amount of time we can train our athletes. So like today, we're doing a full team lift. I can't run the whole lift. So I'm in charge of the offensive defensive line. Their lifts, their runs, all that stuff. My other coaches, Coach Anthony MacArthur, is in charge of the entire skill program, the entire combo program, and then Coach Brad Blannick takes all of our tight ends and all of our outside linebackers and kind of does a hybrid of those two programs. Both those coaches, they design all those programs themselves. The lifts, the runs, everything. They run them. They got their own whiteboards. It's three different lifts going on. So it's putting people in opportunities where they need to be head strength coaches. I think helps them prepare them. It helps prepare them for that role. After coaches have been here for about a year, especially the young ones, I bring them in and say, "Hey, this is what," and I give a constant feedback. It's not a you come in and you get your yearly review. I'm giving guys feedback every single day, and I expect them to give me feedback every single day. But the after about a year here, I come in and say, all right, you've been here a year. Now here's the deal. You need to start looking at this like you want to be a head strength and conditioning coach, correct? And they all say, most of them say yes. I say, you need to start looking at this like a head strength coach. Like look at everything that we're doing. What would you change right now if you were the guy here? And what would your attention to detail be if you were in my role? Because if you act like that now, when you get there, it's going to be stressful, and you're never going to know. My Blake Cundiff, he now runs a bunch of high school strength conditioning programs down in Texas, was my first boss at Albany. And he used to say to me, and I was a GA at the time, he used to say, you have no idea the amount of stuff that I handle that you don't even see. And I was like, yeah, BS, whatever, I see it because I'm working with you every day. We do the same thing, and no, as soon as I took that job over, it was the exact same thing. I had no idea the amount of things that he handled that I needed to get up to speed on. So it's I don't think you're ever ready, but I think putting yourself in that position to be ready and by running things and having ownership in your role at the time will help you when the time comes.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like having ownership in those roles too. Like, and do you want those assistants, like all your assistants and everybody on staff, want to have ownership in your roles if you didn't have humility and understand that they're bringing just as much to the program, even if you're the head, they're bringing as much to the program, like in their own aspect. Like you're giving them so much autonomy, you're giving them so much freedom to basically be a head coach from a position group or like the subject matter expert on a certain topic, and all that stuff feeds into like the one team, the program in sense. And if you didn't have that kind of piece of the puzzle, there's no way as a head coach you can do all those things. You can't, you're going to burn yourself out right away and you'll be out of a job or like out of the profession on your own accord, or you guys will just be, you'll be overwhelmed to the point like it's not sustainable.
They're what we bring to the table. They bring way more to the table than I do. I can teach a squat, I can teach a bench press, and I can bring energy. That's about the and help manage people. It's about the end of my skill set. Like these guys bring in just tons of new information. They're doing all of their technology piece. It's truly like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, and just they're propping me up and making me look good. That's the absolute truth.
Did that come with like you having that humility and like understanding that the best is going to be the sum of the parts and all the people that you bring on staff and how well you vet them to fit kind of your coaching style and the program that you have, not just kind of picking who is like an all-star team almost, where you just go out and try to pick the best people. You try to pick the best fit. Did that come in time? Did you learn that from someone, or were you kind of already alluding to that when you were the head at Iona and the head at Albany and like you started kind of developing that over time?
So a mixture of both. And really I thought about it when I was at Albany. I thought about my skill set and what I was good at. And then said I need people that will balance me. And truthfully, that's when I got here, that's what I tried to do. Um, but I'll tell you the truth, when I took over this role, and I had two great assistants at the time, Rusty Witt, who was a former Power Five strength coach, and Gonkela GC Yeri, who's now at Illinois, who was the head at Stony Brook. When I took over this role, I was bad about giving up responsibilities and roles, because I thought it needed to be done this way, and I couldn't screw it up, and I couldn't. But over time, I learned to give up some of that. I'm trying to think of the right word, but I'm going to say responsibilities again, just because but and the program got better. That's the thing is if you hire extremely competent people who care and take ownership, like they're going to give the best of their ability in what their role is, and the more responsibility you give them, the more they prove themselves, the more they're going to want it, the more they're going to want it, the more, and it ends up like they just keep getting better and keep getting better. And every time I've tried to hire great people, and I don't ask any strength addition questions in their interview. I say, all right, so I'll give an example for Blair Vaughn, who just got a head job. I saw on his resume, it said, and the way I found him is I knew the defense coordinator, Rob Morris, Dave Plungus, who I coached at Albany, and he retweeted a video from their weight room of one of their strength coaches benching 315 like 15 times. And I was like, that's awesome. But then what I saw was the reaction of the athletes all around them, all around him when he did it. And they were going ballistic. And he was pushing them, they were pushing back. And I was like, he's got buy-in there. And he was just a GA at the time. I said, he's got buy-in there. I said, there's got to be something special about this guy. So I said, I texted, ended up giving Blair an interview when I had an opening, and I saw in his resume they did FRC and all these different things. I said, all right, I don't know anything about this. If you get here and I give you this opportunity to be in charge of mobility, can you manage it without any oversight from me? And he was like, hell yeah, I can. Because I can't go that deep into that and that deep into GPS and be able to manage everything that I need to do. So I want those people to have complete ownership in those in those details of the program that I think matter a lot.
Yeah, I think you're right. Those things matter a lot. And as an assistant and someone that wants to be predominantly like in a head role at one point in time, like you're coming into a staff, like you are trying to earn more responsibility. And it's nice that when you do a good job, like you're kind of rewarded with those things. And unbeknownst to yourself, like you're setting yourself up to one day kind of like understand how to run the program and put yourself in a better position when you are do move on at some point and become a head. So it's it kind of feeds into itself because it makes the program better, and also the next person that you're kind of hiring has to fill even bigger shoes and kind of like do the things that were happening before, but you allow them to put their own twist on it and you allow them to kind of add to the program, and you're not so rigid with what you do that you're just kind of filling a specific role. It's whoever comes on to the staff, like you're allowing them to kind of be the expert in what they have and put their own flair on it because that's only going to elevate the program and it's only going to elevate the staff and what you guys are doing.
And a couple of things just coming from that is, and tell me if I'm rambling or I'm going off on tangents here, but the is that every from we've had a ton of positive turnover here, meaning in the staff that I have here, a ton of positive turnover. Guys have left for greater jobs, doubling their salary. But within that all that positive turnovers, the amount of times I've promoted from within, I feel bad because I people will see that somebody goes and takes a job, and I'll get texts from all these people. Hey, I heard you have an opening, and the truth is I've promoted from within almost every single time. And just because I have guys and a young female intern this time, guys and ladies here that I trust that have proved to me over 6 months or 3 months or a year that they've earned the lower role. And the guys that are at the top or second or third in command, they're ready to take that first assistant, that associate head strength coach role. So that's interesting. But the other thing is that with the positive turnover, if people are worth a shit and they care, like they just give you the GPS, for example. GC took over the GPS. I had never worked with GPS before in my life. I got 40 of these things thrown on my desk. We had to figure it out. So I said, hey, GC, figure this out. And he did a great job with the GPS. Then Brandon Reyes comes in here and he's now in charge of the GPS. And if Brandon wants to put his own spin on it, make it better. So Brandon all of a sudden he made it better. And then what I noticed is the next person that comes in, Coach Jake Riedel, he wants to make it even better than Brandon did it. So now it's going to get better, and then it just stacks on top of each other. Every time I've hired and given somebody a new role, they see what the standard is, and they want to make that standard better for this program and put their own asterisks on it. So every time we have positive turnover, the program gets better.
Yeah, raising the standard like that and allowing them to have the freedom and autonomy to do that, that's huge. And that's awesome because like you said, a lot of coaches are moving on and it's positive turnover and it's in ways it's kind of it hurts because like you have to replace someone, but when you're able to promote from within and you already have someone that is doing above what their job is or what their pay grade is, it's a no-brainer to put them in the position because you've seen them outshine what their responsibilities are, that when you put them in the next job that's what they're already doing, they're going to outshine it again and continue to raise the bar. So it's awesome to be able to have the ability to promote people from within because it shows some growth within the organization and it's appealing to people on the outside too to understand that like hard work does get rewarded as well. And for you to be like so boisterous and like excited for coaches to move on, like when you can't offer them more, like there can't be five U's, there can't be five
Yeah,
directors of football at West Point. They have to move on at some point. So like to allow the coaching tree to like continue to grow and see them excel at their own positions and take ownership of their own programs is has got to be super rewarding as well.
it's so cool, and I've been very lucky because I've had great people that have worked with me here. But really, like it's one of the coolest things that I've been a part of it. It's one of the things professionally I'm most proud of is just the amount of guys that are good people that are out there that are doing things right. And I'm going to try to. I've heard horror stories about coaches telling head coaches telling assistants like, "Hey, you better not apply for this job. You have this, and this, and you have. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to help interns because they promise you a year." Like I'm not going to swear. That is crazy. That's crazy. Like, because what you get, you don't get rewarded in the long term. Because if I keep pushing my guys and getting better people, is when jobs open up and say I didn't have somebody to promote, people will take pay cuts to come here because of just the opportunity that they know that they're going to get here, and then the opportunity they're going to get no at the next job. So it's if you treat people, do right, do your best, show people you care. That's our three-team rules here with Army football. And if those showing people you care is taking care of people when you know that they have a better opportunity to change their families' lives or to go become a head strength coach. You got to help them. You got to help them.
Yeah, definitely. That's huge too. And like understanding when your coaches come in that like that might not be everybody's goal. Like I've changed positions based off location or like family situations and stuff like that too. Like it's not always maybe a career trajectory where it's going up in a sense that from the outside world, people are like, that doesn't make sense for a move. But it can make sense for where your goals kind of align both professionally and personally as well, too. And to have that backing from a coach and understand like that is huge. And I know a lot of people like praise you for that too, like because you honor those things and people want to be on your staff because of that too. So that's awesome. The taking the role like initially, like you had head positions and then you took on an assistant role to go to West Point. Like what was the draw like that many years ago to like actually join the staff and like kind of leave a head position to become an assistant? I know you're in a head position again because of all those opportunities, but like what was the difference? What drew you to West Point and why kind of take a step back almost into assistant role when you already basically had the head position and you can build from that own program?
So the my ultimate goal was to be a FBS head strength coach. And to be honest, I don't. I'm not sure why, but at some point in Albany, I said, "Hey, I want to try the next level. This is what you want to do." That program kept growing with me. Excuse me. It was like I said, I was a GA. Then went to Iona for a year. Came back, was the head strength coach there at 24 years old. The head of an FCS program that was doing well, and we ended up moving up to the CAA 2 or 3 years in, and the role kept growing with me. But when we had a long winter break one year at Albany, and I called Brian because Brian was an assistant. Funny, even funnier story. Brian called me. He was leaving Sam Houston to do the exact same thing, to become the first assistant at Army. And Brian was the head strength conditioning coach at Sam Houston. He called me and said, "Hey, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah." And I remember telling him, "Brian, you are absolutely insane. Why would you leave a head role to go be an assistant, do it?" And he gave me all the reasons. And then so I call him about, I think it was a year later, might have been 6 months later. I said, "Hey, can you ask Tim if it's cool for me to come visit for a day? Because I want to just go down and visit. We got time." And he said, "Actually, I just got the head job here." And like Tim was leaving and Brian was going to be the head. And he was like, "Nobody knows this. This just happened like 2 hours ago. It's just funny that you called me." And I said, "All right, Brian, I'm not going to come down. You got too much going on." He was like, "No, I need you to come." And so I came down, watched the workout, and Brian, I watched the workout, and the players were phenomenal. The facilities are absolutely incredible, and I was like, "This place is awesome. This is awesome." And Brian at the end was like, "Hey, what do you think?" And I gave him honest feedback, and he was like, "I need you. I want you to come be my head, my first assistant." And we kept going back and forth, and I ended up saying I talked to Coach Gattuso, who was the head coach at Albany at the time, and he goes, "I know you want to be head FBS strength coach. You need to take this job." He goes, "I could try to give you more money to match this," and he said, "You need to go take this job if you want to be a head um, FBS strength coach." And from there, to be honest with you, it was hard. It was hard being an assistant again because you're used to the rush. Now, Brian did a great opportunity gave me great opportunities to run the offensive defensive line, do things like that. But again, you're not the guy in charge. You're not the guy going to staff meetings. You're not getting the same type of rush every day. So those 2 years as an assistant, there was points where I was like, "Ah, man, I need to go become a head again. I need to go become a head again." And I had some opportunities, some interviews, didn't end up getting the job. And I remember I came back from one, and Coach Monk and Brian's wife had just had a baby. They had just had their daughter, and for a week I was running it. I remember Coach Monken was watching, and he grabs me after. He goes, "Hey, just to let you know, if I heard you didn't get that last job, if Brian ends up leaving here, he goes, I'm gonna make you the head strength coach tomorrow." And I was like, "Hell yeah!" If Brian leaves, I was like, Brian better leave pretty soon because I'm never leaving this place if I can get the head job here. So that's kind of how that went down. But yeah, it was a struggle. It was a struggle because I missed that rush, but had a lot of opportunities to partially get the rush, which kept me satisfied, but it was hard.
Yeah, it's definitely different to I've talked to a couple people that have kind of taken that step back a little bit from a head job,
Yep.
whether on their own accord or kind of forced into that position. And it's always definitely a very big change because you were in that seat before and you kind of know what it entails and you're itching to kind of get back into it. But it gives you kind of an opportunity to see how someone else operates, be a really good supportive position. And then hopefully if you're doing things the right way and you bolster yourself for when you get that opportunity again, you're like, I'm going to solidify this. Like, there's no way that I'm going to go back down ever again. And it sounds like that kind of was a way for you, and it worked out in a way too, like with Coach Hess leaving and Coach Munkin just putting you in that position. You've been there for, I think, what, 7 years now? Well, five or
So
six as the head.
so I'm going on. This is my seventh season as the head coming up. So I've done
Okay.
six as the head and two as the assistant, which is crazy that I've been here 9 years at this point. Crazy. Still feels like I just got here.
I know that's awesome. There's a
Yeah.
lot of turnover, especially in college football and some of the higher level sports with like we talked about the landscape and everything changing. So it's awesome like for you to still be there and kind of actually build some consistency within a program too. And the service academies are always super special. Like what is it kind of like about it? Like I know you talked about like the atmosphere and everything in it, but like for those that haven't worked in that environment, it's very different because you're balancing not only school, social, athletics, but you also have like kind of that fourth factor, which is like military life. Like how involved are you or how often do you kind of see that military side kind of play in with the athletes that you work with? Because at the end of the day, you're getting them ready to play football. You're getting them ready for their sport. Like you're trying to build some character traits that carry over in life, but they're also pulled in another direction, which is the military, and there's soon to be like their commissioning and that obligation that they're going to be required to do. So how do you balance that, and how are those opportunities kind of different for you when it comes to the weight room preparing them for a game when it's more than a game?
Uh, Nuanced question, and there's a lot that goes into this place and this football team, and truthfully, what makes this place the most special is our young men and women. I mean, they are they're called to service, and they're these 4 years here are incredibly difficult. And I think from an outsider's perspective, I think the military aspect seems like the hardest part. The hardest part here is academically. I mean, this place is, I could not have survived here at 18 years old academically. It is rigorous and difficult. You just thinking about what some of our guys are studying. It's nuclear fission. I don't even know what most of this stuff is. They're brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. But the biggest thing is just managing the academic load. And you think about it, it's Division I college football, and our players have to be up for formation every morning. I think it's at 6:40. So they're up for formation every morning. They have to go to class every single day. They get in season. They get up to our facility at 2:30. They don't walk out of our facility till 9 o'clock at night some nights. And we're getting off the practice field at 7:30 at night. So then they shower, they get treatment after practice, they go upstairs, they eat, they go down the hill, which is where their barracks are, and they're doing 3 or 4 hours of schoolwork every night. So you look at that and you just look at the sleep factor. Is they might be going to bed at midnight, 1 a.m. and it's not their fault. It's the academic load that they have, and then to turn around and then have to wake up at 6:40. Normal school you can sleep through your first two classes. Here you don't. So let's just say bed checks when we get to the hotel. As the strength coach, we do bed checks at night. Our guys just leave their doors with like the lock in there. I pop in, I see two people asleep. I close the door and walk out. We've never had an issue with bed check. Um, But as far as the physical training, like as their strength coach, you're like, my goal is to get them ready to win football games. I mean, their training for to be officers as far as physically happens in the last 6 months of their career after they're done here playing football. It's for offensive linemen, they're losing 40, 50 pounds in those 6 months. Now the majority of our guys have to push to get to 300 pounds, so that it comes off of them pretty easily. And super type A people, by the time you get to your fourth year at West Point, you're pretty locked in. So like you can lose weight pretty fast and have some discipline. But the physical training that we do is it's all for football based. That's what we need to train for. And the Army and West Point have been very helpful in that our guys they do get out of the height and weight restrictions. Now before they graduate, they need to be within all those restrictions. They need to be able to pass the ACFT, pass the IOCT, which is an indoor obstacle course. But while they call it a MAP program, so it's modified athlete program. So our guys do a little bit of a different ACFT, which has been the ACFT change has been phenomenal because it's much more conducive to big athletic guys. Our guys can almost max that except for the 2 mile run, and they'll all probably get close once they're done playing. And then really like militarily, because we're a Division I college football program, like our the big summer trainings that the rest of the cadets do, we have to train. Like we have to do our football training. So from June 1st until we end the season, really after the bowl game, like this year was December 28th, our guys are really in season and then they're football players. So the majority of their summer training that like with the military side is done all in May. So our guys have a condensed version of that. And it's rigorous as hell, but it's 9 or 13 or 14 days. So it's not they're not out there for 2 months like they used to be, and we're trying to put a football team together right before camp and get them ready. I mean, they give us the opportunity to train pretty much all summer to get them right.
Yeah, it's awesome to kind of hear like the ins and outs of how that schedule works. And
Yeah,
I wasn't sure how it all worked. Obviously, speaking to some of the former athletes and other coaches and too, to kind of see
yeah,
how that fits within the program. But it's nice that you're afforded the opportunity to like put the main focus kind of on football a little bit. Because I mean, like we say, like in all the other kind of Division I or all college athletics and everything, like a lot of the stuff we're doing in the weight room and sports is going to prepare them for life. So I don't see why sports is not going to help them prepare for life in the military as well. So it's great that like
absolutely.
what you guys are doing is still seen as a great benefit. And although they're not getting out of every single thing, they are afforded some opportunities to kind of condense the program on the military side because they see the impact of your guys' training and preparation for football is still a direct carryover to what they're end up doing physically, like in the military. So I know this is probably something that might have been an adjustment when you actually got to West Point and you started working with all the cadets and all the players and everything too. But do you ever see like a point in time where you have to like really instill discipline with the players because they are service members, like they are coming in. There's probably adjustment in that first year when they come in. And I know that attention to detail, all those things that you harp on is like super important with them, but it's got to be vastly different than working at other programs with just the type of individual that you have like on your team that encompass the program.
Yeah, so interesting enough. When I was moving down here, I went from Albany down here back a few times to move some stuff, and I was listening to books on West Point and kind of getting a history of just what a day in the life for a cadet is and when I showed up, I thought our guys were going to be almost like robots, like yes sir, no sir, like they are the farthest thing from that. Than they are. The way I'll put it is, our guys are the best. You take your best 5 guys at any other school, any other football program. You take your best 5 guys that'll work their asses off. They'll give you great attention to detail. They're the best 5 in any other place. But we have 130 of those guys. So you take it's 130 of the best young men you could ever possibly work with. But they're normal 18 to 22-year-old college kids. They're not robots. Their girlfriends break up with them. They sleep through things sometimes. They fail a test. So they have the normal 18 to 22-year old issues that every other kid's going through. So it's things you got to help them with. And yeah, absolutely. Are they more disciplined than every other team in the country? Absolutely, absolutely. But that allows us to have the standard even higher and realize that the margin of error in college football, not just for us but for everybody, is this big. I mean, one false start, one fumble, these are things that win and lose football games. So for us, we harp and harp and harp on those things and it helps us be successful. Because you never know when that drop snap is going to cost you a game. You never know what play is going to be the most important in the game, in your season. So trying to be locked in all the time is really important. And our guys are, like I said, they're phenomenal, but they're normal 18 to 22-year-old college kids. They have the same issues that all other guys have.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of dichotomy between those because
Yeah.
I think from the outside perspective, unless you like really did a deep dive or talk to people that have been in it, that's probably their idea of the program. So it's interesting to kind of see that they are normal in a lot of ways.
And one more thing is Coach Monken asked the team before the bowl game this year. He said, how many how many players here, and the entire travel squad was there. How many players here really wanted to go to West Point and didn't know anything? Didn't before they were getting recruited here. How many? Raise your hand. And not one guy raised their hand. They didn't even know that it was. Some of them didn't even know it was an option. They were going where they were recruited, and the majority of our guys, this was their one or two top FBS offer. So they ended up coming here because they wanted to play the highest level of football they could, and then they had high academics and high standards and high character. That those things fit, and we try to find those guys in the recruiting process. But really, like most of these guys didn't come here. Didn't They were going in their junior year of high school, had no idea that they were going to go to Army and West Point. And some kids grow up with this being their dream. Our guys, their dream was to play the highest level of college football they can, and this ended up being the place where they could do that.
That's very interesting. I wouldn't kind of expect that, at least from that many people, but
Yeah.
it's great that you still were able to find the right type of person for the job. And like it's more than just a commitment for college and for football. Like it's extended past that, like as a military career. So to find people that where it's not their first choice in a sense, but like they fit the mold for it and then they kind of develop into it and they fit it even more like throughout their career. That's pretty awesome. Well, hey coach, I know you're kind of on a time crunch with everything. So hey, we end the show with a finisher. So I got four questions, and we'll go rapid fire with them. But you ready?
Let's go. Yep, absolutely.
Hey, so first one, biggest influence in the strength and conditioning profession.
Interestingly enough, I got to do two. It's going to be Brian Hess and Chris Fee. Those two guys that they've been my friends since Springfield. We all played college football together, and they're the guys that I ask if we have a group chat and we talk all the time. The three of us just, hey, I'm thinking about this. He's thinking about this. He's thinking about this. We go back and forth at all. They're my trusted few, the guys that I run everything by.
That's awesome. Hey, so when you're not in the weight room, what are some of kind of your hobbies that kind of recharge you and get you ready for another day?
Number one, hanging out with my wife and daughter, just doing anything with them is the absolute best, and that recharges me better than anything else. Then really, smoking cigars and shooting guns. Those are my two favorite things. Other than
Hey,
that,
that's not bad at all.
yep.
I know you said that if you're in this, like you can't think of anything else, but what would be maybe an alternate profession like in a Coach Hughes like alternate universe? Like what would you maybe do if you weren't coaching?
I don't know. I don't have a great skill set. I mean, the one thing I thought would be awesome and be fun, and I've watched like documentaries on and stuff, is like a bail bondsman. But like, I don't know if that's actually realistic. But doing something, I honestly, I've never thought too much about it.
Okay. Hey, that's all
Yeah.
right. Hey,
Yep.
so that's definitely the first one we got. But if you're setting up an ideal training day for yourself, like, and you get the choice, what music is on the radio and what's your favorite post-training meal look like?
All right. So music is hard because if I'm going for a heavy squat or a heavy deadlift or a heavy bench, it's going to be the Dropkick Murphys all day. But I've been listening to music for 12 hours a day for 16 hours straight. When I work out, I have books on tape on because music it doesn't get me anymore. I got to listen to something because I listen to it all the time because of just being in a weight room. So it's going to be the Dropkick Murphys. I'm going heavy, but other than that, it's a book on tape.
All right. What about meal?
Oh, meal. Probably a grass-fed ribeye, maybe tomahawk, maybe not, with some blue cheese on top. That's it right there for me.
Nice. Well, hey, last one I got for overtime. What is,
Yep.
if you know, like off the top of your head, all your time at West Point, what was your favorite Army Navy game, if you can remember, or bowl game, if like one sticks out in your mind?
Yeah. The COVID year Army Navy game, and when we ended up playing it here, it's the first time that game had been played here in forever, and it was just awesome. It was just the cadets and the midshipmen in the stands. It was a foggy night. We ended up winning 15-0. It was a long year for our guys, long year for everybody in the program to have that success, and then to beat Air Force the next week. It was absolutely tremendous.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
that's great, Coach. Hey, I appreciate all your time. I will link everything on there, but thank you again for coming on today, Coach. For anybody that's got any questions or want to see what you guys got going on, where can they kind of get a hold of you, though?
Probably the easiest way would be through my email, just because the Twitter I just shut the DMs down because I couldn't respond to all the people. So it's conor.hughes@westpoint.edu.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Coach. This has been awesome. I really appreciate your time and good luck preparing the guys for this upcoming season.
I appreciate it. Beat Navy.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.